Howdy, howdy, my peeps. So I want to talk, I just was invited to talk about my NDEs or near-death experiences. I've had 3 of them, and some of you have already heard these stories and how they changed my view of what death is. So those of you that know Neville Goddard and all that understand that a state is simply an I am. I am rich, I am poor, I am fat, I am thin, I am whatever. That's a state you're in. And death is a state. I am dead, right? I am alive, I am dead. It is just another state. And whatever you expect going into a state is what you're going to experience. And that is the very foundation of life here. And it's not even the foundation of life, it is the foundation of your existence as you. So, if you wake up in the morning and you're thinking, I am fat, well, guess what's going to be the very first thing you experience? Sorry, it's windy out here, so I'm going to try and stop the wind from making noise in the microphone here for you guys. So anyway, yeah, so it's very simplified. It makes it very easy. So if you are on your deathbed, right, and you're very much a believer in heaven and hell, well, with your very next experience of whatever it is you're going into, which is death, you're going to have an experience. And see, a lot of us go into death with there's nothing afterward, right? That's it. That's the final, it's the final straw. And no, when you realize it's just yet another state, then you realize that there's more and more and more. So anyway, at my age, I've had a lot of states. I've had a lot of I ams. I am 10 years old. I am 16 years old. I am a teenager. I am a child. I am a daughter. I am a girlfriend. I am a mother. I am a grandmother. So I've had a lot of I ams, right? And when we start purposefully playing with the I ams instead of just letting it, happen as helter-skelter as it does, your life and your world changes in crazy, crazy, crazy. So my very first experience with death was when I was a very small child, and I think I was probably like 3 years old. I got into a bunch of my mother's pills, mostly probably just decongestant type antihistamines. That's it, antihistamines. But I don't really know. I can only go by what, the stories my family tells me. And, I thought they were candy. So I was like, I'm going to eat the whole bottle because it's mine. Ooh, and here's another bottle. And I'm going to take these into my room and I'm going to eat this whole one. And another bottle. And I'm going to eat all these and everything. So, my father, my mother, my family, they discovered that I had done this. And so my father was keeping an eagle eye. He's a doctor and he was keeping an eagle eye on me all day. And yes, at one point I lost consciousness, and back then they believed it was called swallowing your tongue. And we were out for a drive, and he looked in the rearview mirror, and I was passed out. And he stopped and performed CPR until another driver stopped and helped and got us to the hospital and everything. And yes, I literally died in that moment. Now, I remember nothing. I remember nothing of that. I definitely remember getting into those bottles, and I definitely remember thinking I was eating really yucky tasting candy. But I remember nothing of the entire death experience. So that one's kind of a moot point. The second one is I was out surfing in enormous pre-storm waves. I was not a good enough surfer to be out in those, but, I was playing with, I can do it. And the big waves were not supposed to come in for another 3 hours. So I was really addicted to the rush of zooming down a face of a wave. So this is what I was seeking out. Unfortunately, the really humongous waves started coming in early. And what you do as a surfer is if you can get on the outside of where those waves are breaking, you can catch your breath if you're getting exhausted. You don't want to be on the inside because that's where they're breaking. And the word break is perfect, because that's what happens if one of these suckers crashes on you. It's not fun. So what started happening was these bigger and bigger waves started coming, and there was no lull in between. And I was just frantically trying to get onto the outside, which I was not being successful. So it was a whole bunch of tossing the board aside and diving under the wave. Well, the board is attached to you via a leash. And when a wave, grabs that board and yanks it, it yanks you too. And so it was just not fun. I don't know how long it was before I started getting too exhausted. I was getting wiped out. I couldn't get in. I couldn't get to the outside. I was very much caught in the middle where I was getting smushed left and right. And at one point, I threw the board. I dove, what's called, you duck dive, dove under the wave, and the wave grabbed my board and broke my leash. It was that big of a wave. I'm under the wave just getting washing machined. I mean, I'm just all over the place. When I popped up, my board was in the air spinning. It got tossed so hard by that wave. And now I'm screwed because I don't have a flotation device to help me, and I'm exhausted. And here comes another giant set of enormous waves to break right on my head. And at that point, all I could do, number one, I immediately realized I was going to die. I immediately was like, this is it. And I thought of my son, who at that time was 8 years old, and I was like, there's no way. I'm not okay with it. Actually, he was 10. I'm like, there's no way. I'm not leaving my son. And I felt a solid no. And this wave started getting ready to break on me, and I was so exhausted I couldn't even take a breath. I've never understood that could happen, where you couldn't go, you couldn't do that. All I could do was just close my eyes, close my mouth, and just, and that was it. I knew this was the death. This was the death blow. I knew it. There was no, oh, I wonder if. This was a solid, yes, this is going to happen. Now, one thing I knew is that there was nobody around me. There were no other surfers out there anywhere near me. And there were a few other things I knew that don't have anything to do with this. When that wave hit me and knocked me down, there was, I distinctly remember a moment of, I guess you could say kind of like just darkness, but not really. It was just a moment of, I don't know what you want to call it. But in the next moment, I popped up. I popped up out of the water, and there was a surfer right there going, hey, do you need help? I'm like, duh. And he helped me in. Now, guys, that was death. That's all death was. It's just a moment of, in this moment, a wave is crashing on me, and in the next moment, here's a guy asking me if I need help. That in between there, that's death. That's all death is. And now, if I believed in the, oh, I saw a white light and all of that, yeah, maybe I would have had that experience. But I didn't subscribe to that. So that's not the experience I had. And now that particular incident really shook me for a long time. It really, really, I couldn't tell that story without visibly shaking. And I guess you could call it PTSD, but whatever. Now I decided I don't want to play there anymore. I'm not available. I can easily tell this story, and it's no big deal. So the other story with death did happen recently, several years ago. And I was driving along windy mountain road, and I actually went over the cliff. And the interesting thing is the driving over the cliff is very much dreamlike, kind of like I'm like going, did that really happen? I don't, it's very foggy, I guess you could call it. But what is very crystal clear is I had a moment where I was on a certain section of this mountain road that I know very well. And in the next instance, I was about a half a mile down the road, parked in a turnout. And once again, that was death, guys. It was just a foggy, oh shit, I'm going over the cliff. And in a blink, I'm down the street, down the road, in a turnout, sitting there kind of going, what the hell just happened? I mean, and it very much is like this. Have you ever been driving and you can't remember the last 5 miles? And you're kind of like going, oh shit. It was exactly like that. It was like going, wait a minute, I can't remember what just happened. But there's this part of you that's like, but I'm okay right now, so we're all good. And so I also had another experience when I used to do mediumship, when I was a medium, when I used to play in clairvoyance and all of that, where a friend of mine died. And I had reached out to him while he was dead. And his explanation to me about death was this. You get what you expect. You get what you expect. And he expected to have the experience of heaven, because he was Lutheran, very stout Lutheran. And so that's what he was having. And he was showing me that. He was showing me that he was having the experience of heaven. But his answer to me about death, because we used to have when he was on earth, he and I used to have lots of deep conversations about death, very philosophical conversations, very fun. And his answer was, he goes, you get what you expect. And that, again, as I started out this video with the foundation of existence, you get what you expect, always. When you wake up in the morning, if you expect to be this gender and this age and this body size and in this house and blah, 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 and I'm currently working at this place and all, that's what you're going to experience. But if you choose to go into different experiences and different expectations, which is very much what I constantly teach and have my own fantastic experiences in, then that too is what you're going to have. You are this fantastic, amazing creator that is not limited in any way. You know, we used to be like, oh, we're not limited. Well, except for death and taxes. Nope, not anymore. Neither one of those either. So it's very fun. I love this. I love this because when I used to believe that there was an expiration time, I felt this anxiousness, like I had to hurry up and live my life. You know, like, oh my God, I'm going to die and I'm not going to have had this and this and this experience. And oh my God, I got to hurry. You know, there was always that angst. And now that I understand existence, I'm not worried about that anymore. I'm not worried. I know that I'm always Kristen and that I always will be Kristen, you know, and that's a whole nother video too, is the topic of the I amness, that this name, Kristen, that this being is just a facade. And I don't believe in that either. But before I end this, I want to ask you a question that some of you guys have heard me say 100 times. Have you ever not existed? Do you have any memory? Can you recall up any memory of you, say your name, not existing? You can play in past lives. Oh yeah, this person stopped and then I was a man, or isn't it always a king? Weren't we always a king? Something wonderful. We're never like some homeless guy in a past life, you know. But anyway, and in that moment, you could sit here and go, oh, yeah, see, I didn't exist. I existed as somebody else. But again, who's telling me that story? Who's remembering that past life? You. Say your name. You, right? So because you have no memory of never not existing, you got a whole bunch of memories. You got a whole bunch. I bet you got a whole huge novel full. But none of them, you not exist. And because of that, right there, I'm not worried about death. I don't, you know, it's just another sandbox to go play in. Just another experience. And then what are you going to play with after that? Fun. All right, guys, take care.